Hello, I'm here with the park ranger.
Hi, my name's Abby, and we're here at Natural Bridges State Beach. We're just on the trail to our beach just behind us, and we're going to be talking about some of the animals that live in our tide pools. So we talked last time about what a tide pool is, but some of the animals out there are very diverse. So the first one that you don't actually get to see without a microscope, but is the most plentiful out there, is plankton. And plankton is our zooplankton or phytoplankton, and they live in the water. They're floating around, and they are the base of the food chain. They're a really important food source for a lot of the different animals, and they also consist of different animals that either photosynthesis or are smaller creatures that eat other animals or eat phytoplankton, or are the larvae of animals that will end up living in our tide pools. So two of the different animals that live in our tide pools that do eat and filter feed off of our phytoplankton, our zooplankton, are barnacles and mussels. And those are probably the two most plentiful creatures that you'll see out in our tide pools. So there's a safety limit that we like to think of, which is the line of the mussel. So we have California mussels. They have this beautiful blue color on the outside. They're a mollusk, and more specifically a bivalve. So they have two shells that cover up their body inside, which is a soft squishy mussel, and they are really cool. They hold on with things called Bissell threads, and Bissell threads are kind of like little strings that they send out that glues them onto the rock. So they're able to hold on by their little strings of the Bissell threads. And we think of them as a safety zone for your safety, but also for the protection of the mussels themselves. So you don't ever want to walk on mussels because you will break their Bissell threads. When the tide is high, the water covers them up, and they're able to open up their shell and suck in the ocean water, and then they filter out all of that plankton that is living inside of the water, and they eat that, and then they squirt out the rest of the water. So they're also clean up the ocean. So if there's ever a red tide, that's when there's a high amount of diatoms that are poisonous to people. They can absorb those and clean out some of the water. On our mussel, however, you'll also see barnacles. So the most common barnacle out there are acorn barnacles. They're little white barnacles. This is a bigger barnacle. It's not an acorn barnacle. This is a barnacle you might find on a whale or a bigger spot. But barnacles are really interesting because as a juvenile, they are plankton. They're floating around. They smell out or use chemical scent to find a spot where there are other barnacles because they have to be near them to reproduce. And so you'll find kind of colonies of barnacles near each other. They are crustaceans like a crab or a shrimp, and they glue their head to the rock. Scientists and dentists are actually looking to find out how they use this glue because they want to use it for their own purposes. But they glue their heads to the rock, and then they build a shell around their body. And they have a little opening as well. And when the tide is high, they stick out their legs that they're covered in kind of a feathery material. And that feathery material helps them filter and comb through the water, picking up that plankton. So those are two of our most common animals out there. When you're walking around on the rocks, you'll see those white little barnacles, and you want to make sure that you walk lightly because you can hurt them and scrape them off. And we want to make sure that our tide pools are nice and healthy for years to come. So thank you for coming out and learning about tide pool animals.